Joining me now in the studio is Wendy Cromwell, Vice Chair and Director of Sustainable Investment at the $1 trillion asset manager, Wellington Management. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, it's a pleasure to be here.
Wendy, what do you think it says about sustainable investing that a $1 trillion asset manager now has someone dedicated solely to it?
Well, for us, what it says is there was a lot of organic bottom-up interest from our investors to explore this field as a source of alpha for our clients. So really, by putting me in place, they wanted me to try to harness all of that interest and allow our investors to express those views.
And what kinds of things are the investors looking for more specifically? Is it environmental sustainability? Is it governance? Other issues?
Well, interestingly, I think that our investors are looking for any type of insight that's going to allow us to achieve value for our clients. So it's across all of those spectrums. So we have a dedicated process of establishing an investment philosophy, which is which market inefficiencies do you see, why do they exist, and how can we take advantage of them? And more of our investors are seeing some of these issues as not being priced into capital markets. So they see that as the actual inefficiency that they want to take advantage of, incorporating things like physical climate risk, or understanding some of the growth that's coming from the companies that are trying to solve these great pressing problems.
And how do you think about putting this into practice? Is it the asset allocation, or is it companies in which you're already invested and you try to take a more active role with management to address these issues?
I think it's a little bit of both. So from our perspective, we have sector teams that are comprised of equity fundamental analysts, credit research analysts, and ESG analysts. So triangulating on the value of a security from all three perspectives. What that means in practice is when a CEO or a chairman of a board comes into our office, we have 10,000 of those meetings a year, we bring all of those resources to bear on that conversation and hopefully uncover some interesting insights.
And are securities often excluded from investment consideration because of an ESG factor?
Well, our practice is trying to understand the value of the security and understand which securities within any given sector should get premium valuation, which securities should be discounted. So for example, in E&P, water efficiency is really important and can affect their production cost. Those that have better water efficiency should have lower production costs and therefore should have higher value, and vice versa. So we're just trying to price those risks accordingly and generate value.
And so in that example, E&P being energy exploration and production,
That's
is that
right.
correct? And Wendy, how has investors' interest in sustainability evolved over time? It seems like maybe a recent phenomenon or so, but what types of investors were first interested and first came to you to talk about these issues, and what's the broader range of investors doing it now?
Well, I really think about it as a life cycle of geographic adoption. So the Nordics have really led in this space, followed by Europe and the UK. And then I slot in the Australians and the Canadians. And the US is really coming up the curve in a productive way, but we haven't innovated in the space to the extent some of our other geographical peers have.
And why do you think that is? Why did the Nordic region and others sort of come first to the scene on this issue?
You know, I think it's all about evolution and exposure to different topics. There seems to be more of a groundswell about long-termism and thinking about sustainable finance in Europe than there is to date in the US, although there's definitely pockets of it.
And do you see different types of investors, different types of pools of capital, so sovereign wealth funds versus family offices, endowments, foundations, pensions? Among that list, who is sort of the most sustainability minded right now?
So it varies, it definitely varies, but some of the sovereign wealth funds are leading in the US, some of the public funds are leading. You'll definitely see family offices or charitable foundations involved in the space.
I'm hearing more about investors incorporating climate change factors into their considerations and even their underwriting, and as they think about owning an asset over sometimes 10, 20, 30 years in the case of long-term investors like sovereign wealth funds. How do you see climate change now altering the investment methodology and outlook?
Well, one of the most exciting things that we've done is in September of last year, we announced a partnership with a climate research institute, Woods Hole Research Center, where we're partnering. They're bringing the science, we're bringing the capital markets knowledge on physical climate risk and trying to understand at a very granular level how different companies and different securities will be impacted by their physical climate risk. So we have the potential with Woods Hole to create these granular maps, overlay them with our capital market overlays, look at different investments and see if anything's being mispriced.
Wendy, a question from our audience. Does there need to be innovation in how to measure sustainability and perhaps standardization so that asset owners, these pools of capital, can understand how different investment managers are performing against these metrics? Does there need to be some standardization in that?
Well, we really look to academia in order to establish our own practices of KPIs or measurement, key performance indicators or measurement. And we adopted a logic chain approach where we think about the activities and the inputs of an organization, the activities, the output of the organization, the outcomes, and then the impact. And we can track a company where it sits on that progression and try to move them more towards impact to the extent of some of our impact investments. We think that's a nice framework for evaluating progress.
Yeah. And so what's next for sustainable investing? If we sit down at this conference a year from now, or 3 years from now, or 5 years from now, where do you think we'll be?
I think it's a constant state of evolution, and even the academic work supports that. Many people want to look at which specific factors historically have driven the value in a security, but because the space is so new and evolving, and companies are paying more and more attention, you get all of the companies getting up to a baseline level, and you're really looking for those exceptional performers. Those will be the ones that outperform. So staying focused on the research, trying to understand who those exceptional players are, and investing accordingly.
Well, Wendy, thank you for joining us.